Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Scale Model Kit Review. I am pleased to bring you another installment of the FanHome Build the Millennium Falcon. I am working on pack number 4, stages 12 through 16. Now if you haven't done so already, head over to FanHome and subscribe to this build today. I put a direct link down below. Click on that link, it lets FanHome know that you're watching my videos. So with that, let's get started. And welcome back. Let's look at everything that came with Pack 4 for the Star Wars Millennium Falcon by FanHome. And we received stages 12 through 16. Here's the parts for stage 12, stage 13, stage 14, stage 15, and lastly stage 16. Also, I'm going to go ahead and show you what I've completed on the cargo hold bench seat and also the cockpit. I was in the process of finishing those up, and I'd like to show you what I did complete on those. After that, we'll get started on stage 12. Here's the cargo hold couch that I modified to remove the back cushions, and that was strictly for the convenience of the movie cameras during the filming of The Empire Strikes Back. And this whole section was actually removable, but my answer to that was to add the larger cushion there. And I took the other cushions and I glued them all together, and then I cut them off so that way I can actually mount the cut off part on the bottom here. Now I've taken and I've filled it in with some UV activated resin for 3D printing, and I'll put a link down below how you can receive a kit for this where you actually get the light, the UV resin, and sanding sticks and such. It's a nice kit, so I'll put a link in the description below. That makes that nice. I filled it in there too a little bit because just a little bit of that shows, and I'm going to go ahead and paint it. And then I made a little panel out of plastic card. Next I have these greebles. And this is just a bunch of little greebles taking from a couple of extra parts from my Tiger 1 kits, the 1/35th scale Tiger 1 kits, and these are just associated little bits and pieces that are going to go on that panel. And here's the couch with all the greebles attached to it. I thought it turned out pretty good. I also scribed in a line right here on the cushion to look like it's a breakaway area like the real studio couch did. But there you go. I'll be back with after I paint it and weather it, and you'll see the final result. And here's the couch that I just completed. Little modification. Scribed in a little black line to make it look like it disconnects and goes off the side, but I scratch built my own control panels there on the side. I think it looks nice, and it's ready to be installed into the main cargo hold. Did some weathering, then I painted it with some matte finish Krylon spray finish. Alright, real quick, I'll just show you what I did with the cockpit here to finish up the weathering of the seats. Now, if you'll remember, I did color the seats with oils, and with oils you want to make sure that they are completely dry before you put any top coat on, like a clear coat or anything like that. And it actually sat for about a month, so I took a makeup sponge and I dabbed it with a makeup sponge, and no oils came off at all on that sponge, so that told me that the oil was dry. Then I went ahead and took some Krylon matte finish, and I sprayed the whole cockpit area with that, let that dry, and then I took some transparent raw umber and I thinned it out, and I applied that on top of the chairs to give it that dirty look, and that's what you have. So I'm very pleased with that, and I'm ready to proceed on with this build. If you have any questions about what I did with this, please drop a question down in the comments below. Let's go ahead and look at the magazine for stage 12. And real quick here, they have a wonderful article here on the Starship Fact File, the YT-1300FP Mixed Transport Cargo Carrier. Then they get into the secrets of spaceflight, roll, pitch, and yaw. A couple pages there of that. I love this section of the magazine, scale effects, behind the scenes. That's really cool. And then we get into what our parts are all about with this magazine, and you can see we received parts for details for the cargo holds, which will be added next time, and also more parts for the bottom of the hull. So it's time to assemble and complete modular sections, and you can see the modular sections are on the right, the bottom frames. This is what it will look like, and we're going to assemble all those frames we received from previous stages. And step-by-step instructions here, of course, show you that, and I'll take you through this step by step. And you can also test fit the hull plates after that is completed, and we're not going to put them on there permanently, just do a test fit. And I love this article here. It's a welded framework, and they talk about the real Millennium Falcon and how its framework was for real. So that's what this is based off of. Alright, let's go ahead and look at the parts for stage 12. And here's the parts for stage 12. I'll go ahead and take these out and we'll get a closer look. And the reason why I do this, so you can look back to make sure you received all your parts when you receive this also. So there you go. Here's a close-up of those parts. Of course, we have another panel here made of plastic, and part of the interior, the cargo hold area. Some more frame parts which we will assemble in this stage. Those are very cool once again, and brass screws and black button heads. And I do recommend that you take and poly bag all these parts and mark them with stage 12 on the bag. That way you have the correct screws, because they're going to call that out in the instructions. They're going to say get your screws from stage 12 and use those. So the screws can be different between the stages, so it's a good idea to have all your screws kept in the bags until you're going to use them. I went ahead and laid out all the bottom frame parts as shown in the instructions, and this is a combination of issues 9, 10, 11, and 12. So what I recommend with this, as you go to putting these together and following the instructions, do not tighten down the screws. Put them in loosely. Make sure all the screws are in loose before you tighten them down. That way everything fits fine. Also, all the parts are pre-threaded. There are threads here already, so the screws do not cut into the metal. They thread into the pieces. So you don't have to use any oils of any kind to lubricate these screws, because like I said, the parts are pre-threaded. I won't take you through every single screw install with this, but if I incur any problems, I'll go ahead and show that to you. Other than that, I will come back with this fully assembled. And here it is. All the screws are still loose. Like I said, you want to get them all started and keep them loose. That way you don't do any damage to the frames. These frames can be fragile if you're not careful, and you definitely don't want to force any parts together. So now I'm going to go ahead and tighten down all the screws here next. To show you something here though, The small black button head screws put the frames together, and you can see where they're used there. And the longer brass screws, like this, are used to put the connectors together. Also be aware with the brass screws, you have some brass screws that are designed for plastic, and they have larger threads, and you can kind of see that. The threads are spaced out apart. And then you have the ones that are made for the connectors. So the connectors are this type right here that I'm pointing to, and this one's for plastic. So while you're putting in your screws for the connector and the screw will not tighten down, it acts like it's just stripping out, you have the wrong screw installed. You have the screw for the plastic. So this one should tighten down all the way, and that's good. I'll go to the next one. And that one doesn't tighten down all the way. You can see it still keeps turning. So I have the wrong type screw in that connector. It's really easy to get them mixed up. And that tightened down perfect. And there you go. Everything is tightened down now with the screws. And I hope identifying the screws helped you out on which screws to use here. So that's how everything looks. And like I said, if you want to do this all along, you want to just put the screws in loosely and then tighten them down when everything is installed. And that's how that looks. Now we can go ahead and test out some of the panels. I'll do that and I'll be right back. Here's a panel from 9 installed. Like I said, it's just temporary, just to see how it looks. Go ahead and put in panel 10. I did mark it with a Sharpie, and panel 10 will go right there, right beside it. And panel 11 goes right here down below those other two. And that's how that all looks. So that completes stage 12. Let's head over and get started on stage 13. And welcome back. Let's look at stage 13's build instructions. We'll flip through the pages of the articles here just real quick so you have an idea what's there. And of course, they give us the page here for our next parts. This issue includes more internal details for the hold, which you'll be putting together in the following steps. You also have more parts for the bottom of the hull, and you need to keep these for assembly after you have received more frames. And we're going to put together the cargo hold. These are all the parts that are included. It's hard to see that with the lights. There you go. And we'll do that. I'll take you through that step by step. Once again, they showed us how to customize the floor. We've already did that in a previous video. And that's what that will look like, fitting the pipes and supports. Looking good. And we'll be finishing up with that. Very cool here, convincing details. It's a great article here about Harry Lang, and he was instrumental on creating the interior sets for Star Wars, the Millennium Falcon here. Let's get started. Here's the parts for stage 13. Let's take these out and see what we got. Here's all the parts. We received another plating piece here, the frame, and some interior parts here and some screws. Here's the progress of the cargo hold, and I did as they said. I went ahead and screwed down the back panel, the backrest for the bunk, and I used 4 of those small brass screws that are made for plastic. I showed you those earlier. And then I glued down the bunk itself, the couch, and you can see my mods I did for it to make it more screen accurate. I glued down the holographic table, and then I installed this wall here, and I put screws in. There's dovetails, so you push the wall straight down onto those dovetails, and then put in once again those brass screws made for plastic. And of course I do have this control panel installed already also, that just press fits down. Next I installed this back wall here, and once again it is dovetailed. Push it straight down on those dovetail portions, and I put in 2 screws on the side to lock it in place. Then I assembled the tube support, and that's this part right here, and it was secured down with 4 of those brass plastic screws, or made, they're designed for plastic. Next, this smaller panel was installed. Same thing, dovetails were used, and make sure it's pressed down all the way, which it is there. And we're going to secure that with these plastic tabs. They gave us 3 in case you lose one. Cut that off and we'll insert it in there and secure it. Just like that. It looks good there. And both tabs are installed. And for this stage, this last wall was installed. We have other walls a little bit later, but same thing, dovetailed in from the bottom, pushed straight down, and 2 of those brass screws made for plastic secured it in. Now let's work on some of the piping we received from previous stage. So I installed this pipe on top of the technical station, and that was the pipe that was left over from the previous stages. And then I went ahead and glued in the technical station. And then there was another pipe that went in over here in the corner above the bunk, and that's right there. And that was glued in place also. Let's work on more pipes. And the last step for this stage, for stage 13, was to install these pipes here. And what I did is I installed the small pipes on the bottom. I glued in these supports with some super glue, and then I glued in these 2 pipes. And that's how that looks. Looks great. I'll be right back. And that completes stage 13. I think it looks fantastic. I'm really loving this build so far, and it looks great. Let's head over and get started on stage 14. Let's get started on stage 14, and we'll look at the magazine just here real quick. And this time in this issue, the final wall for the hold will be installed, plus more parts for the bottom of the hull, which you can assemble in a later stage. First, it's time to complete the hold after adding details to the port wall. So there we go there. And I'll take you through this step by step. You can see here, we've already done something like this pretty similar. So we'll get rolling, and that's what it will look like there on the other side. Let me get the parts, I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 14. I'll take this out, we'll get a closer look. And here's those parts. Another hull plating there. And the back wall, we're going to work on this. And more hull framing. And screws. Let's get started. And I just finished lining the cargo hold opening here. We've done this before. And that's how that looks there. The glue that I use for this is ABS glue. And if you don't have that, you can use super glue if you like. Super glue will crack and break through time, so I figure the ABS glue will hold up a lot better. And if you spilled a little bit of it and have extra, you can spray paint this with flat clear from Krylon. Now let's install this on the cargo hold. And there you go. It is installed. 4 screws were used to secure it on the back side. You can see that. And it is done. That completes stage 14. Pretty much have the cargo hold, this section of the cargo hold finished. Looks great. Let's head over and do stage 15. Let's get started on stage 15. Looking good here. These articles are fantastic. This time we're going to include 3 padded arches which you will assemble, then start making the corridors. You also have another frame for the bottom of the hull, so this can be complete. 1/4 of the main discs as shown opposite. So here's all the parts, and we're going to assemble 3 more parts of the frame, and that's the first thing we do there. Then we can test fit some more of the hull plates if necessary. Let me get the parts and I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 15. Let's get a closer look. Here's the hull plating, made of plastic. Very nice. More of the metal framing. Corridor tube padding, and the screws. For stage 15 we're going to assemble more of the frame parts, and I have them all lined up. That's what they'll look like. We have all the pieces here, and I'll go ahead and put these together. Once again, you want to just start all the screws, don't tighten them down. Get them all started first, and then you can tighten them down afterwards. I'll be right back. And everything is assembled on the next set of frames here. Everything is loose still, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten everything down. Everything is tight, and that's what we have so far. And the instructions want you to test fit once again more of the hull plating. I'm not going to do that. I'm pretty happy with the last test fit, so I'm just going to skip that step. But there you go. That completes stage 15. Let's do the final stage for this pack, for pack number 4. Let's do stage 16. I am back with the final stage for pack 4, stage 16. Let's see what we're going to do in this stage. This stage includes the starboard corridor from the main hold, for which you receive 3 padded arches with your last set of parts. You'll also have another frame and section of plating for the bottom of the hull. So there we go there. So we need to fix those corridor arches, get those all glued together and ready to go. And then we have the corridor itself with the flooring, and extended the frame itself. So we have a lot to do here, and test fitting the hull plating. Let me get the parts. I'll be right back. Here's the parts for stage 16. I'll take these out. We'll get a closer look. And here's the hull plating. Another part here in plastic. Corridor tube. The flooring for it. Screws. And more of the framing. Okay, I did build the 3 corridor arches. I didn't take you through that process because you all know how it works. But I did take the time to clean off all the sprue bits that were left on the arches and install them in place here. So there you go. Now I'm going to work on the floor. And on the floor here, we're going to put this together here. We're going to insert that. Very simple. And install 6 screws on the bottom. Now they're not just normal screws that we've been using. So we've been using this screw here. And as you can see, there's a longer and a shorter brass screw. For this, you want to use the shorter ones in all 6 spots because the longer ones will go right through the floor. So be aware of that when you're installing this part. Okay, the corridor floor is now secure with those shorter brass screws. Bring over the arches. Now with the arches, you want to line them up all together like this, these tabs here. And they're going to be towards the inside more because they're not exactly in the center. And that's how we'll install it into those assemblies there. They'll slide right in, just like the corridor panels went in. And you can see there's the look there. And there you go. You can see that the tabs on top all kind of line up there, and it's more towards the inside. Okay, let's move on to the next step. We'll start extending the frame detail. Here's the frame detail we received in this stage, and it's simply going to line up right there. We're going to put 2 screws into it. And there you go. Tightened up. I made sure that both screws were installed before I tightened them both up, and there you go. Looks great. And they actually want you to test fit the outer panels, which I'm not going to do. I'm going to skip that for now because I want to move on in the build. I'll be right back. And there you go. That completes pack 4. I had a blast building this pack. It's really coming along, and I'm very pleased with the cargo hold and how that turned out. I think it's fantastic. And of course, we got a lot done with the outer frame for the Millennium Falcon. I think that's very cool that they did that for this and one of the corridors there. So if you haven't done so already, head down in the description below. I put a direct link to FanHome where you can subscribe to this build and build it for yourself. It's a blast. It builds just like a real model kit. As you know, I showed you how to do some mods that really don't cost you any money or anything, and you don't really have to do the mods. You can build this without doing any of the mods. But anyway, I had a blast building this. So if you like my content, please subscribe to my channel. Smash that like button. Happy modeling, everybody, and take care.